Well, hello, everybody. I want to thank everybody for jumping in today and joining this wonderful discussion that we're having on the S6 platform. We've got a tremendous real live events that are happening to prove the power of what's needed in the market, especially with things like blockchain and real asset backed digital securities such as silver and gold. We've got an exceptional panel of well experienced people out in the streets that know what's happening in real time and what the need of these technologies to help empower people. While you're all coming in, it's great to see the numbers increasing because we got a really hot topic today. We're going to bring up live a video that's actually started to happen in Argentina, discussing what's happening on the streets in that wonderful country and the unfortunate situation that's happening to their currency. So, if without further ado, let's pop up that video and let you guys see what's happening. Very tough to watch. Argentina and their citizens are going through such turmoil right now. Argentina, a member of Brics, well over 100% inflation. Currency has completely plummeted. And as you can see, the middle class is just being completely wiped out. Is it only isolated Argentina? Should this be happening in today's modern times? Absolutely not. So here we are to talk about it. It's great to see almost over 50 people now joining our discussion from all over the world. Here with myself, Brian J. Esposito, CEO and founder of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. Honored to be a part of the Load team. Following me, Richard Groom, Chairman and CEO of Load Mining. We have Bruce Com, Chief Business Officer. Ivan Blachik, BMG Group President and CEO. And very famous and well-known David Morgan, founder of the Morgan Report. So we're all here to help discuss what's going on in the world, identify what the issues are, how we can potentially solve them. And I'm going to hand it over to Richard for a quick introduction of what Load is and how we're here to help solve this problem.
Thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this conference. It's truly very sad to see what's going on in Argentina. And as Brian alluded to, we've developed something here at Load that's very special. The Load team, led by Ian Toes, has managed to deliver digital gold and silver on your Web3 wallet on your phone to anyone, anywhere, at any time, in any amount. And part of my job in joining the team is to vertically integrate so we can actually be producing our own gold and silver and deliver gold and silver 99.9 below spot to our Load Digital partner. So we're very pleased to start a series of events like this to help educate everybody about the importance of real asset-backed digital assets. And with respect to the fiat currency system that we're going to talk about today, the system is really broken and it's just getting worse. And a country like Argentina is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They have everything. And seeing that video is really disheartening because the middle class has been totally wiped out. Brian, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. It's like watching a horror movie, right? Unfortunately, as a society, we come desensitized towards things like this, but there are people really hurting there. They need help. They need help outside of the country. They need support and technologies and access to assets and be able to monetize assets that thankfully companies like Load are putting into the market. And with that, I'd like to go over to the first question to David. Thank you so much again, sir, for joining us today. And everybody that's listening in, please like and share the link for this discussion. It's one of the most important discussions that you need to know about what's happening. And we need for as many people to be involved in this discussion today. So, David, what is your view of the new central bank digital currency?
Well, I want to build a foundation first, Brian, just a little bit. In that video that we showed, it said that Argentina is bankrupt, but so is the whole system. I mean, the United States debt cannot be paid off. The luxury that the United States has is not only the reserve currency, but they continue to print, and they can literally print until the currency isn't accepted, which is what Argentina has done about every 10 years. He mentioned the 2001 crisis in Argentina. There's a film about that called The Empty ATM. In that documentary, it shows that all of the people's bank accounts were frozen. You couldn't get any money out of the ATM, and you could be a millionaire, a billionaire, well off. It didn't matter. You only allowed, they don't know the number, but the idea is exactly correct, 500 pesos a week or whatever the amount was. So they basically clamped down on what you could withdraw. It didn't matter that you couldn't pay your mortgage with that amount or pay your groceries for that amount or pay your employees with that amount. That's what they did. So the idea now, segueing to the CBDC, is that's a global solution to the same problem. Instead of an empty ATM scenario, they're going to take everyone that they can and maybe nationalize it. There'll be a CBDC for the US, for the UK, for whatever, or it could go global initially. I doubt that. And this is a solution to the same problem. They're going to say that we have a debt that cannot be paid back, but here's the solution. And the solution of a central bank digital currency really is more control, not less, just like what Argentina did with what they allow you to withdraw. However, it's not backed. Now, the reason I can say that is that Mark Carney, Bank of England, gave 3 speeches, and they're almost identical. He gave one to the Bank of England, he gave one at Jackson Hole to the Federal Reserve, and he gave one to the United Nations. And the essence of it is that we are going with modern money theory, which means you can print to infinity and not have any consequences, which is absolutely ludicrous. Anyone that's studied monetary history, such as myself. 2, it would be absolutely unbacked. There'd be nothing behind it. And 3, that we'd have total control. So it's a central banker's wet dream, but I don't think it's going to take place. I think there's going to be pushback. And if there isn't pushback, we can mitigate the problem with what I call ABDCs, asset-backed digital currency. Now, I've been rather bold, and people, on the internet in my genre all the time tell you they picked the bottom. They told you the housing crisis. I did. They picked the bottom of this stock and that stock, and I've done that myself. But I was the bottom of the market at the Silver Investor, my original domain, at the absolute inflation-adjusted low. And no one else can make that statement, and that's me. Doesn't mean I get it right 100% of the time, but I usually get the big picture correct. So I've been early, but I'd rather be early than late. So the CBDCs is the bankers' idea of how they're going to continue to control us. And there's going to be not only ABDCs from Load and other entities, but I think the big push in the crypto space that's just starting again will be asset-backed digital currencies. And why is that? Because most of these digital currencies are basically software. And the software is like an Excel spreadsheet that's spread out around the world. Everyone can have access to that spreadsheet, but there's nothing really that's done with it. There are also many that do things. And there's nothing more solid as far as transfer of wealth or security of wealth or preservation of wealth than a 5,000-year history of precious metals. And that's why as people wake up to what's really going on and the CB is forced on them, it's going to awaken more and more people. In other words, it's going to backfire on the central bankers. A lot of people are going to be watching shows like this asking for answers, and they're going to find them in an asset-backed digital currency. And we are one of those, and we're the only ones, to my knowledge, that will be vertically integrated where we can pass on our mining abilities to the people that participate in the program.
I couldn't agree more with you, David. I was honored to speak yesterday at Benzinga's Future of Digital Assets. A lot of the discussions I was talking about was real world assets, tokenization of them. But and since meeting Richard and this amazing team, there's nothing more impactful and more empowering than gold and silver, from my opinion, and something that could actually have the ability for everybody around the planet to have participation and ownership of that, to really empower them and actually give them a real asset that they can feel proud of, that they can monetize, and that they can earn from. In addition to that, the only other safe play that I've been involved in is security tokens. And I've been very heavy on the regulated environment, working with the SEC on what the future of digital assets are. And that is, like you're saying, the software concept of crypto I've no interest of. The ability to build communities and build passionate people that believe in projects, I do have interest of, but doing that in a form where they can protect their tax earnings and they can actually have some forward value or monetization events from that. So I completely agree with what you're saying. One question I think maybe some of the people listening, who would be pushing back to avoid this central bank digital currencies from happening? Because you said if there's some pushback, then maybe it won't happen. I'm curious to see who needs to push that back so we can avoid that from happening.
Well, actually, believe it or not, some of the big banks, because if you go to a CBDC, first of all, it supposedly needs to be enacted by Congress, which at law it would be, but the way the laws are ignored these days, I just won't make that statement as a fact. But you see JP Morgan's going to like a gold tied digital currency, some type. The central banks don't want to be out of business. And if you have like the Fed as the only bank and you have a direct relationship with them, what happens to all these other banks? So that's one pushback that most people don't think about. Secondly, of course, it's individuals. And it's corporations as well, or small ones or whatever. But basically, it's people. People have been fed up with the Fed, and they want to push back. And if they have an exit strategy that even is a partial way out, it's better to have half a loaf of bread than none. And so if they get into the system that comes about, but also have an exit with, let's say, something like load, then they have some safety net, you might say. And the main thing, I think, is the Web3 and how we can maintain some anonymity in our financial privacy, because this is paramount to a free society. There's a direct relationship between free money and freedom. And this has been cut, and they're going the other extreme. So it's time to push back and think about it. It doesn't take a lot of work to get into some of these programs, such as Load, to mitigate your personal position, or it could be corporate level, merchant level, or what have you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the insight on that. And everybody that's listening, and I see the numbers continue to go up. So thank you for taking the time. Really important discussions. Please share with your network on our socials, LinkedIn and Twitter, and get as many people into this discussion as possible. Yvonne, it's so great to have you. I've learned so much about what you and you've done with your history as president and CEO of BMG Group. Amazing what you've accomplished. If you don't mind, I'd like to throw this next question over to you. What is your view on the Brics nations and the effect on the U.S. dollar?
Actually, it's a fantastic question and very timely. I do believe maybe I should mention sort of a background of Brics, and as we know, the current U.S. financial policy and foreign policy and sanctions are throwing all those people into each other's arms to start with. So that's very, very interesting. And when you think about it, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they represent 42% of the whole global population, over 1/3 of all the territory, and about 30% of GDP, and well, quarter of global trade. And that according to the World Bank, maybe it's more. But what's more important is that they account today of over 40% of global oil production. When they started initially 18 years ago, it was only 20%. But what is happening? They just in their summit in 2022, the president of Russian President Putin announced the creation of the currency to compete with the US dollar. We don't know what is the stage of development of currency. I would suspect that it's quite advanced. But what is happening with the currency? All the members of BRICS, including 40 new members and of 20 some that are waiting in the wings, represent certain types of countries. And then not only they have incredible market, incredible resources, but they also have an issues with the current dominance of US dollar as a reserve currency. It has been slightly diminished by euro and yuan, and in the recent years, but it's still almost 100% of our oil trade is in US currency. So what they're right now, I guess, proposing to their members that they should focus on the local economy, on their own currencies. But all those countries had issues like Argentina, one time or another, maybe not to that degree, it could be worse, like Zimbabwe. So what will happen? They need to back it up with something. Right now, if there is a new currency, they'll be backed up with their respective currencies. But those currencies, if they're wise, will be backed up by bullion, by gold. Then in essence, the new currency will be backed up by gold, which will be a antidote to the hegemony of US dollar in the global markets. And what's really interesting is that US dollar, as David mentioned, is being printed continuously without no end. And it gives a government ability to control certain things, set the interest rates. But in terms of it's going to implode from inside out. Interesting that you also, David, mentioned that the JP Morgan would be oppositional. I would like to quote JP Morgan that gold is money, everything else is credit. That was the founder, and he's absolutely right. So where we are happening, that is what is going to occur, the result of all those things that are happening. Everybody is focusing on the small little things. Nobody sees the big picture. The picture is implosion of the financial system, realignment of the political systems that are supported by those forces. And on the home level, American homes and anyone that is backed or has in their portfolio U.S. currency, governments that their basket of is supported by U.S. currency is going to suffer greatly. Those that are prepared, those that have exposure to gold or to silver, can mitigate that risk. The change may be, immediate, may be very slow. I don't think we're going to wake up tomorrow and see gold at $10,000 an ounce. But imagine if that happened, what will happen politically and geopolitically. Many countries become a new superpowers. Countries that perhaps are not aligned with our value system or with our political agendas. So this is going to be humongous change. But US dollar is in danger. US dollar dominance as the reserve currency is right now on the cusp. For a variety of reasons, there are many forces that will indicate that. Right now, what will happen with the cryptocurrency, if it's backed by gold, whether it's a fiat currency, crypto, anything that is backed up by gold or by that kind of asset, will have a chance to become dominant in the marketplace.
See, Brian, if I can just chime in on that point from Yvonne. One of the things that Load is doing is our business model is B2B to C, so business to consumer. We're not going to go into every country like Airbnb and Uber and cause a ruckus and have picket lines and all that stuff. We're going to go in with existing business channel partners that have licenses, that have the compliance, that have millions of customers. These could be neobanks, these could be payments companies, they could be retailers or large associations. So in that, we've got an initial start in Mexico where we've got several clients waiting in the wings, one of the largest retailers, one of the largest migrant worker associations. And by being able to acquire gold and silver through our own processing facilities that we're going to start with acquiring in Mexico, we have the ability to deliver a delivery service of gold and silver that's $9.99, fully minted, LBMA standard quality, to our sister company, Load Digital, at a discount to the LBMA price. So being vertically integrated enables us to get the consumers, the B2B2C side, an excellent price. Because we're not talking about price. Like Yvonne can talk to you about prices. In some cases, bullion dealers charge anywhere from 7 to a 30% premium over spot. And we don't want to do that. We want to get our clients in as close to spot as possible.
Exactly. So what we want to do, we want to bring to the client that asset that would actually mitigate all the risk and help them in a lot of people consider gold as a last kind of the resort when there's a blood on the streets. We don't want to be there. We want to make sure that people plan ahead, and having an access to gold to distributor below spot price is a fantastic business model for us, and it's fantastic service to the customers, where they can actually build that portfolio at the appropriate level, an appropriate price, without overpaying for speculations and for markups.
Brian, I've been in capital markets for 40 years now. I guess
just a minute.
I think I'm the old guy on the team here. I've sold all my stocks. I do not own one share of a company, public company in Canada or the US or anywhere else in the world. I'm only buying gold and silver. And what we've done with the ability of Web3 on the blockchain is we've fractionalized the asset. So now for the first time, anyone anywhere can buy $5, $10, $100, or $1 million. And when you fractionalize an asset, history shows us the demand for that asset increases substantially.
Yeah. That's one of the major reasons why I was so excited to join you, Richard, and this mission. In my holdings, people that know me, there's a lot that I think are exceptional IP and technologies. One of which I spent almost bulk of my career building is parallel networks to internet and cellular and Wi-Fi connection. We've all been in a situation where there's a blackout, a storm, God forbid, a terrorist event that takes down our networks, or there's saturation problems. So I've built some incredible tech through the years, and through that, we've evolved into a company called Nodal and a company called MetaLife, where we can connect the unconnected world and we can bank the unbanked world. And that's one of the biggest exciting things I'm honored to contribute to Load is the 3 to 4 billion people that we don't look at as consumers, as participants, because they don't live in first world countries. They don't have traditional networks. There's no way to have, there's no economies that we know of that we can build around them, but they're walking around with an Android phone. I've seen it firsthand. They're living in a hut, but they got a smart device. And once in a while, they'll get a Wi-Fi connection, or once in a while, they'll go into a town and get a cellular connection. So we have the ability to connect and reach those people. And now when you start to look at what is a true global economy, and when you look at a true global population, what is the first thing that they would really understand to have the ability to buy? And that's the ability to get digitally involved with gold or silver. I see the numbers that continue to keep going up. Thank you all for listening in and keep sharing. Before we go on to the next question, there's pretty interesting timeline I'd like everybody to think about. 5000 BC, you had the barter system. 1821, you had the gold standard. 1933, paper money. 1950, plastic money. 2014, electronic money. And then 2019, the idea of the cryptocurrencies taking off. So if you look at the progression of how do you do commerce, how do you do transactions, where does wealth comes from, where does savings come from, and how do you put in models of wealth preservation and wealth enhancement, the scale of which we're doing these things now, and the technology advancements that's happening now is in real time. And not only it's a great the ability that we can do that, but if you look at what's happening in Argentina, and the link is in the chat for anybody that hasn't seen it, please watch that video. The need for it's immediate. The tech that we can apply to the need is immediate. So that's really important to understand that this isn't something that we hope to implement years from now. This is something that should be and can be implemented now. So the next question's for everybody. Maybe David, we can fire it over to you to start it off with. The world seems to be going in the wrong direction with all these conflicts. How does this affect gold, silver, and fiat currencies?
Well, in two ways. One is there will be a run to gold, and we're already seeing that with the central banks. Central banks have purchased more gold last year than they had in decades, and it continues this year. And the other one is that war can obfuscate what's going on in the financial system. So you could very often see a correlation between the destruction of a currency and a war. So there's two sides of the same coin. It will push more and more people into sound money. There's little doubt about that. You look at history and it speaks loudly. That's the situation, and it continues in modern times. In fact, I really think that this next one will go in the historical financial record books because of the internet. It's not snail mail world anymore. People can gain access almost instantly to anything that happens globally. And with the social media networks that some of these people have, and these influencers, the kind of power that they carry is outside of the mainstream press, believe it or not. So I'm very bullish on it, but and not because on a sound money system. I'm always dismayed about war. I mean, I made the comment on Rivera's movie, and I put it into the Morgan Report paid service a long time ago, but I'll just repeat his subtitle, and that's "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars." And that basically is the truth.
Yeah, the Rothschilds win every side of that war, from history has taught us. So completely agree. Yvonne, you need me to repeat the question, or can you jump in with some of your
Yes,
thoughts
I
there?
can jump in. Basically, the wars always existed. Conflicts always existed. I think that's a very accurate statement. It's a bankers' wars. They create shifts. They also create a smoke in the mirror for overall population. So nobody sees the big picture. And a lot of the opposition comes because people do not understand. When one system competes with another, or one currency is in difficult situation, it's not about elimination, it's about market share. It's quite possible that, let's say, for example, the reserve currency will be less demand, and of course that will affect the politics and economy in one country and in US or in Europe. However, at the same time, the other forces, the other currencies that are backed by gold, the digital currency that is backed by gold, will take their own market share. Also, the society has changed over the years, over centuries. We are right now, we are everywhere. We are visible with the access of technology and internet. So how the population, how the consumer will react, how governments will manage that, it's a really I think we'll be working in some sort of a silos that have to have a symbiotic relationship with one another, as opposed to eliminating one system for the other, because that will not really happen, because we are too diverse for that as political entities, financial entities, and so forth. That's
You know what that is? That's gold. I'm going to leave it just like that. That was absolute
so.
gold. Rich, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know we text about this, I think, nonstop, 24/7 about what's happening in the world, and we have our own passionate opinions and our own solutions, but would love for you to share with everybody listening in today.
You know, Brian, I'm looking at, excuse me, there's 180 fiat currencies in the world as we speak today. Let's go from Argentina and we can visit Venezuela. You know, the people that voted for Chavez, their children are eating out of garbage cans in the street right now.
Exactly.
It's that bad in Venezuela. And let's go over to Nigeria for a second. Nigeria, people couldn't get money out of their ATM machines. The Naira, as we used to know it, was eliminated and they started over again. There's 213 million people in Nigeria. And the people of Argentina, Venezuela, and Nigeria are some of the biggest adopters for digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. And then I look at what's going on with BlackRock. And there was some videos that went around this morning about Larry Fink. And Larry Fink, they had a very interesting chronology of events from 2000, I think 18, 19, all the way to 2023, saying, well, no, Bitcoin, we're not going anywhere near digital assets. And then to today, where they're waiting on SEC approval for their
Bitcoin
their
spot ETF,
their BTC and their Ethereum derivative products. And when BlackRock gets approved, it's not if. There's no doubt about it, they're going to get approved. When they get approved, this will unlock trillions of dollars of assets into the digital world. So this reminds me, I was telling this to David the other day, what we're seeing reminds me when we looked at the internet and when a company called Netscape went public, and I had my investment banking company, and I went up to my analysts and I said, guys, can you explain to me how a company with no revenues, that's a browser, can have a $2 or $3 billion market cap? So then we started researching the internet and the browser and how they make money. And of course, i.e., this is what happened to Google. That's how Google started, with an advertising model. And so I think we're at the early days of the internet and email, when email was clunky and I had 3 executive assistants doing all my stuff. And now I have no executive assistents and I still do all my stuff. I could use a couple. But we used to say in the late 90s, no one's ever going to buy shoes or clothing on the internet. And look at it today.
Yeah.
So, and in North America, we're very spoiled. You know, we haven't had the wars come to us as of yet, except for the odd terrorist event. So I really do think that the rest of the world, we did an internal report, Brian, on failed and failing states, and the states that are suffering from high inflation and currency devaluation and war. And we came to the conclusion there's about 2 billion people right away that can use our product to help them stay out of financial troubles.
Actually, I would like to add to this. This is something very interesting because I was thinking about it. There was no war on American soil. All the wars were in Europe and everywhere else. So there is no really a national memory or this sentiment. And there is a saying, that, you know, when you raise on love, you have a different perspective than those that are raised on survival. And this is something that resonates when you think about gold. And also the misunderstanding of gold, not understanding, not having the sentiment for gold in Western world that was not touched, but those events over the centuries, over hundreds of years, except some minor internal things.
Yeah. I want to just touch on one thing because it got missed throughout this whole Bitcoin, not on this panel, but just in stories. The Bitcoin ETF movement, it's exciting, right? It pumps a lot of money into that market. But my fear of it, my excitement for it and happiness for it is, okay, you can breathe a little bit because it's getting approved. You don't have to worry about if you're playing in this space, your bank to be turned off. You'll have access to your regular fiat currency if you want to participate in some digital assets. So for that aspect, I'm glad it's being adopted so people don't have to wake up one day and be in harm's way that they can't access their money because they may have some digital currency in their holdings. But my fear of it is, and thankfully, thanks to products like Load, that those products forever are only invite only. It's the 1%ers of the world that get those opportunities to be able to buy into those new offerings. They're already sold out before they even go into the public, and usually it's the person on the street, which is why Richard's smart enough not participating in that game anymore. If you're the last one to get in, you're buying all the previous people's sales. They're using you for liquidity. So I just want to say from my aspect of what I do in my career and why I'm moving forward with digital assets and digital securities, it is the future. You need to play the game with regulatory and understand what you can and can't do. But I'm a little disappointed that the excitement around that and understanding we're repeating what has been done with products and programs and securities now with a new medium. And for that, I just don't want that to get missed, because the idea of a decentralized opportunity to be able to have access to earnings and access to creating wealth and actually bettering your life, that's not the program. That's to keep the wealthier making more money. So if anybody wants to go against me on that, please go ahead, or we can jump into the next question.
Oh, you're good.
All right. Dave, I'm gonna come back to you, pal, on this. So what do you think about your history and what you research and what you know is phenomenal. You understand governments and how these worlds work. Are they trying to eliminate cash?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's a joke among some of us that once the government denies it 3 times, it's guaranteed to happen. You know, we will never go to a cashless system. We'll never go to a cashless system. We'll never go to a cashless system. It's guaranteed they will. Christine Lagarde just did a speech for the public domain, and she said it's going to, they'll have cash alongside with the digital euro. So that's at least number 1, if not number 2, that they're not going to go cashless. Yes, they want to go cashless.
Okay. Yeah, I like to live in the real world. I've walked into places and they don't take cash.
Yeah.
It's the most bizarre thing in the world. Like, you're looking at you like you brought something in from the moon. So okay, that's okay, fine. Whatever. Maybe the shop owner wants to avoid theft. Maybe they just have quicker processes. They want to get people moving. Whatever the reasons being. Now you have an issue such as a blackout, or your internet goes down, or there's something that happens. Does that mean that store and all the products on their shelves, or the gasoline that's sitting outside in the tanks, does that mean there's no transaction because you move into a cashless society? It makes no sense to me.
Brian, there was a gas station company that shall remain nameless that was hacked on the east coast of the United States, close to Canada. And the gas stations remained open, but they could only accept cash. All the digital transactions could not be processed. And so the more connected we get and the more digital cash we get, the more at risk all of us are of not only losing our freedoms and identity, but having it confiscated. I mean, look at the Canadians did in the pandemic protest in Ottawa. The government froze their bank accounts, and it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
If I'm going to you, are they trying to eliminate cash? Don't hold back. I know you're not.
They would, and one of the good reasons is that the digital data trail is very important for control. for control, not only activities of people. Then you have a huge opposition from people that like freedom. And just going back to something what Richard said, I experienced this on the beautiful, where I am, beautiful Georgian Bay. There was a blackout. There was no gas station that would take anything except cash, but the gas station didn't work because the pumps are controlled by computers.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing. But in terms of a elimination of cash, I do believe that's the intent. But also, what that will create the shadow economy. What will happen? The same thing that happened with prohibition.
Yeah.
You stop
my
people
favorite time.
brewing alcohol and distilling it in their basements. So what will happen with that kind of a strategy? That will create another level of market. There'll be a shadow market, very robust. And what would they trade? They cannot trade anymore more fiat currency because it doesn't exist or is not really that valuable. So they be trading in bullion, in silver.
Yeah.
Silver, the poor man's gold.
Yeah.
Accessible to everyone, all gold. So, but it was a lot of danger, but definitely that's the intention. All the indications are that the government is looking to eliminate cash because of the control and the kind of other reasons they might have. And also the opposition from freedom-loving society and people that understand that they don't want to live in a box controlled by government that is re-elected every few years, and the things change that it might not be appropriate for everyone, or good for everyone, for society at large.
Yeah.
Brian, if you look at, if you believe some of the stories that are coming out of China with their digital central bank currency, there's a guy that was jaywalking, and he got a ticket, and whatever the amount was, and it was taken out of his bank account by the police the same day.
Wow.
And he didn't plead guilty or innocent. It was just taken right out of his account.
Now, my question is, did he submit that information, or did they already have that and know that? That's
I wasn't there, unfortunately, so I can't give you testimonial proof. But I asked David and Yvonne the question, and yourself, Brian, do you think any government would lie to us about what the real intent is? Yes or no?
This is very interesting. And they either will lie or they don't know themselves. You see, this is like I would say in some other kind of respect, it's like a painting for the blind. You don't really know. But what will really happen, in those situations, that having that kind of control is like microchipping the entire society or entire humanity.
Yeah.
And they don't have to know. You don't have to know. Be taken from you to be decided, and that's something that is very concerning to a lot of people.
I mean, my answer to that, I feel, I hate my DNA in my heart. I have this problem where I think everybody's inherently good, and I tend to think that there may always be good intentions. One of the biggest problems, if you have a great dictator, right, that loves his people or her people, and they do a great work and they share everything with you, then dictatorship can be great, right? If they do everything correctly for their country and they take care of their people and everybody, rising tide rises all citizens. You got a bad one, then you hear the word dictator and you think it's the worst thing in the world. So I think one of the issues with the constant, even a CEO of a company that continues to roll over, there's always changes go back. So maybe some good intentions got pivoted. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I might be butchering that quote, but there's always something that comes in to take. There's always an ulterior motive, right? Or there's always an initiative or a mission, but then you fast forward 2 years, or fast forward years, there's a new person in there with different ideas, and then it's just a mess. So I don't have any of those answers. All I always try to do is control my own little bubble, whatever is going on in the world. I need to know about it for our companies and the markets, and have empathy for people. You can't price something in the market where nobody has any money and they can't spend any money. So we have to understand and live in the real world and be out in the streets with people. So I want to just say, what is the best that could possibly happen for the outcome of everybody? I tend to say, and I look back in history, and David, maybe you can understand my point in this. as humanity, there has been awful situations where you had the Crusades, you had emperors rolling across continents, killing and massacring people, and there was a lot less of a population then. Now you have 7-8 billion people. I tend to look at it, my God, that's a lot of people. And you know what? I don't think we're doing that bad. But then you go and look at something like Argentina. I don't want to see anybody hurting. I want to see anybody that all of a sudden they have no wealth, they have no currency, they have nothing to buy anything with. They probably can't even barter things. It's just like it's hell. So that's a terrible situation, and across the country, that's awful. We have to make sure we look at that and say, how do we help them now and fix that, and then come up with a solution that can be replicated with other countries? That's an idea that I would get behind, because otherwise, if Argentina falls, and then the next one, then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, my fear is there's a giant reset. And all of a sudden, what we know of and what we have in the bank and what we've been working hard on and all of our tax savings and earnings is just worthless. So that's where you go back to things like Load or other technologies and companies out there that actually have real value, and then the ability to participate in owning some of that. And that's how it's a diversified portfolio to de-risk our world and our lives and be able to put food on the table, be able to have clothes, be able to have a shelter. It's kind of going back to the simplest of times, but making sure you have some kind of asset to be able to afford it.
Absolutely. If I may add to this, as private entities, just like Load, we can find solutions, creative solutions. And yes, you're right. There's a goodness in people, but there's also the other side. And unfortunately, unchecked, can grow the sideways. Society doesn't realize that. We don't know. We live in our little, bubbles, so to speak. We don't look at the big picture. And yes, you call it the reset. I call it the collapse. But when it's every collapse or doomsday is coming, the new door opens, and the creativity of people in industries like ours can actually provide the viable solutions that can be replicated and perhaps mitigate some of the risks that history is supposed to teach us not to do. But that was a different paradigm altogether.
Yeah, no, I want to thank everybody for all the time. We're coming up on the end soon. So anybody that has any questions, go into the chat. I would appreciate everybody that's stayed tuned in. It's been a great audience today, and the Load events that are happening weekly. Great to work with 6 platforms. So we're building a nice audience. The need and the importance of what Load is, and speaking with great people like Yvonne and David today. Know what's happening in the markets, understand that there needs to be some fixes out there to help people, and I'm glad that we have one of those solutions. I think a great way to end the conversation with our panelists today, and whatever you're comfortable saying, I don't want you to get a sound bite that gets referenced back to you, but over the next 6 months to a year with AUAG and FIAT, what do you think investors should look out for, and where should they be spending their time and their resources?
Well, I can start. The investors have to look for diversification. They have to look for less exposure to reserve currency, and they need to have exposure to gold. That's what, in different forms, but that's essential. That diversity in investment, the exposure, cash is still very good, but you cannot be in it, all the way. And other investments, they have to really judge, they have to research. But I do believe once you add gold to your portfolio, you will mitigate the risk. And it has to happen now. When you think about it, in the 60s, the gold was $35 an ounce. Now it's almost $2,000. When I have a chart here in different currencies in different countries, there are different numbers, and people are waiting. So they're waiting to, as you said, at the tail end, when it's unaffordable. This is the time right now to protect yourself, to diversify, to protect your wealth, to protect your life as you know it, because the risks are coming, and they are all over the place. And if you just look at the political and geopolitical landscape all over the world, it's not a happy place.
Thank you, Yvonne. David, over to you. Next 6 months to a year, what should investors look out for as it relates to gold, silver, fiat currencies?
Yeah, don't have a lot to add on to what Yvonne said, but there's been some discussion in the chat box here, talking about other commodities. So I'll preface it with the statement that you hear very, very often that, gold is the only asset that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. Well, that's not true. It's not the only one. I mean, silver would be one, platinum would be one. And this person asked, what about corn, wheat, coffee, sugar, cattle, and others? Would that give a lot of security? And the answer is yes. I mean, any asset that's needed by humanity would provide or mitigate the problem to some level. But you can't put any of the softs or the ags into the category of money. The reason that gold is so valuable and coveted is it has no other use. I mean, other than jewelry and money, it doesn't do a lot. Where silver, you can't make that statement. Without silver, you couldn't have this discussion. You couldn't have an internet. You couldn't have a computer keyboard.
Well
You
said.
couldn't have a membrane switch or anything else. But I get on a tangent. But yeah, that's okay. And you will probably see a lot of these commodities go higher and higher as we get more and more destruction of the U.S. dollar. But I think Yvonne summed it up better than me. I think you just got to look out there and watch the bond market. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and traded futures, and we would have the money supply numbers come out. I think it was almost every Friday. And in those days, the bond vigilantes would really pound the bond market based on what was happening in the inflation arena. And of course, that's been long, long, long gone, but starting to come back. We saw this last auction where there weren't a lot of buyers wanting to buy this debt that will never be paid back. And that's a point of no return. And we reached it. It won't absolutely manifest day after tomorrow, but it's going to progress in that direction. That's a guarantee.
God,
Brian,
Richard.
I remember the days of Drexel Burnham. Okay, a brilliant business model to finance junk bonds. You remember those days?
Oh, do I?
David, and we all know what happened to Drexel Burnham, but it was run by a very smart guy. And this whole fiat currency deficit financing, I see some chatter in the chat also. They're just kicking the can down the road and hoping the next president is going to deal with the problems that they got. I mean, the amount of debt and money that Canada and the US has printed since COVID started, it's mind-boggling. And sooner or later, it's going to collapse. And that's why gold and silver is a great hedge against that collapse. What we're not showing you is a dozen graphs that we could show you on the devaluation of purchasing power of the Canadian and US dollar over the past 10, 20, 30 years. It's extraordinary. And people don't see that every day. And if you compared that to the price of gold or silver, you would be laughing if you owned gold or silver instead of the Canadian or US dollar. So that's, we're not making a forecast. I don't forecast prices. I'm not an investment advisor anymore. But, gold and silver is the place to be in this troubled times. And, you've got the whole tension in the Middle East now. You've got the tensions in China. And I don't see an immediate solution in the next 6 to 12 months. So gold and silver is a good place to be.
Well said, Richard, and way to bring this great discussion to an end. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think we've got a lot of value in the conversations here. Everybody, please, that listen in, or if you're going to revisit and you didn't have a chance to join, you can go and watch the replay tomorrow at the same link at the event that was on our socials, same link that may have been emailed to you if you RSVP'd. There's a great, I want to also thank Ray Torsten, our marketing manager at Load, who's been adminning this discussion today. So thank you, Ray, for all the hard work that you and the rest of the team are doing. Yvonne, you've been fantastic. It's great to be working with you and get to know you since I've joined Load. David, you're an absolute rock star, pal. Thank you for all that you do. I know it's a lot of work to stay on top of this on a global venue that we all live in, and you speak the truth. I admire and respect the hell out of you. So thank you for your career and what you continue to do. So everybody, we'll bring this to a close. If there's any other last questions, throw them in. I don't think I'm seeing anything. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous. So I really appreciate everybody joining. Yvonne, Richard, David, anything else you want to end us off with?
No, I'll just say that thanks everybody for joining. We're going to be doing this every 2 weeks as a minimum, and we'll do a pause over the holiday period at Christmas. But and we'll have our returning speakers, David and Yvonne, but also there'll be additional speakers that'll be invited to talk about what's happening in the world and gold, fiat currencies, deficit financing, inflation, and the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And Ray, do we have one video to close it, or are we done for this great discussion? All right, awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time. It was one hell of a discussion. So everybody, do your research, do your homework, find these great opportunities and technologies like Load. Go back and listen to what Yvonne and David said. It's the truth, it's reality, and you got to find ways to protect yourself, protect your families, and protect your wealth. So thank you all again. Stay well.